Hi everyone, it's Sean Sandilands from Pulse Markets here. I've got Dr. Harry here and John Manusu from Aegros. Hi guys, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Awesome.
Great.
End of it.
Excellent. Well, we've been very busy with you recently. We've just successfully finished a cap raise to repay out your convertible notes. You're very well funded at the moment, and I've noticed you've been very busy. And I guess what we'd really like to do is just to get a bit of an update of how things are going at Aegros and the progress you're making. And I've got a couple of questions that I think are prudent to what's going on at the moment. Can I grab a bit of your time, please?
Absolutely.
Our pleasure.
Okay, thank you. I've always found that. You're always very accessible, which is very good for us. Either or one of you to answer this, the clinical trial, which is, I guess, the most relevant thing to investors at the moment. Can you just give us an update of how that's progressing, please?
Right now, as we had told investors before, we finished the first arm of the clinical trial, the first arm being that the volunteers have been injected with convalescent plasma. This is plasma from patients who have recovered from COVID-19. The second arm of the trial required us to go back to the Human Ethics Committee to get approval from them to actually go ahead with the second arm of the trial. I can tell you that we were informed by the Bellberry HREC people today that this has been approved and we can now go ahead with the second arm of the trial. The second aspect of that is to actually manufacture the proteins so that this can then be made up into what's known as Covimmune, so that this can be injected into these subjects. Now, we are in the process of doing that. We're going to be conducting a stability trial over the Christmas period, and the first subject first volunteer in that second arm should be complete sometime at the end of January.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's worth commenting on, Sean, in this is Omicron and how that actually impacts on the type of products that we have. Because I think it's not just, I think the critical thing here is that what that has shown is the concern that we all have that the next variant, be it this one or the next one or the one after, will get around vaccines. And then you're back to square one. And that's why a HyperImmune is so critical, because it's updated for each of those variants. And we draw plasma from those who have recovered from each of those variants. We put it in our pool, and that makes the pool resistant to that version of COVID. So this is why what we are doing is so essential now as we move into this next year.
Yep.
That's really good to hear. I mean, this Omicron, it was in Africa 2 weeks ago, and now it's in Australia. So you could start defending it straight away, virtually, couldn't you?
As long as we've got patients who have recovered from Omicron, we can actually get Omicron hyperimmunes, which can be then given to those people who need to be protected from Omicron. And I think that the most important part of that is that in countries like Africa, frontline health workers would not have had access to an Omicron type mutant. So if the vaccines don't work, the hyperimmune is that first line of defense so that they can actually look after patients who come in with, Omicron plus or whatever the next mutation actually is.
Excellent. Well, let's just focus on Covimmune at the moment. What's the status of your production so far?
We are currently doing production runs as we speak, in fact. Everything is full steam ahead. We will be working right up to Christmas and then back again in the first week of January, continuing with the production runs. We should have finished with our production runs for stability by the middle of January. And then it's a question of making sure that the stability results are up to speed, so to speak. And as I said, first injection should be complete by the end of January.
And 42 days past that, the trial is complete, and we will lodge then with the TGA for our therapeutic goods registration. And at that stage, sales will start.
So just 42 days from the beginning of January, we're talking mid-February, you would say?
I would say conservatively March.
Yeah. It's 42 days from the end of January.
Yeah.
So you've got to give yourself 42 days from the end of January, which will take us into early March.
Okay, that's the first quarter. That's not far at all.
And it's on budget. That's the other thing. We always said first sales Q2 2022, and we still hold to that.
That's excellent. That's really good to hear. Investors will be very happy to know that. When we were doing the raise, there were a few short-term milestones that were potentially happening. One was the Middle East, the replications project. Is there any update there that we could give investors at the moment?
Absolutely. We have completed the study that had to be done, and that is due to be presented to the to the relevant health authority and also to the relevant government entity in that particular country. So I would expect that January, February, we will start our commercial discussions with this country. And at that stage, I'm expecting we can announce something about the country itself. But it's absolutely moving ahead. And the two things which have moved it ahead are getting the TGA approval, which we got back in October, and starting our clinical trial here, which is what we're going to be doing in January.
So there's a lot happening in the first quarter of next year.
Absolutely. We are going to be very busy, and we're going to be busy on all fronts. So both domestically with the clinical trial and the production runs, and then overseas with negotiations with this relevant country.
And I think the other thing we should talk to, Hari, is what we've been doing operationally, because we've now got the head of the replications division who is starting with us in January. And this is an incredibly seasoned individual who's joining us, one that we've dealt with in a prior life. And he has built plants all around the world. He's built them in Europe, America, China, India, even Vietnam. So this man is incredibly well experienced. Secondly, we've just appointed a CFO who will help us in this run up to this IPO stroke trade sale, whatever it may be. And this is also going to help us just power the organization ahead.
And as we have said before, we are in talks with both the New South Wales government and the Queensland government about the establishment of a 1 million litre plant in either of those states. And again, this is a replication project. It's more than a replication project, it's a scale-up project. This is a 1 million litre plant. So that is going ahead as well.
So there's a huge amount that we are now capable of undertaking. Thank you very much for that capital raise. It has just helped us remove the debt from our balance sheet and given us the operational funds that we need. We will be coming back to the market, and I think we've discussed this, Sean, before, but when we do, it will be after we've achieved some of these milestones so that people can see that the funds are all about achieving things rather than, as many biotechs are, gonna do this. No, we're about have done this before we talk about the next capital raise.
We can certainly see that happening from our end, so that's really comforting to hear. One last thing I'll ask, because I know you're very busy and I've just got you between the lab and in between meetings, John. 3 goals for the next 12 months. What will be the 3 main focuses of management at Aegros where you think you can add the most value for us shareholders and yourself as shareholders too?
Yeah. Well, I think that the first thing is for us to start and complete that second arm of the clinical trial. John?
Absolutely. The second one will be to complete that replication project that we've discussed.
Yeah. And the third thing is to actually get the company ready for either a trade sale or an IPO.
Yeah, which will be after we've got orders either for the replication and or orders for Covimmune here in Australia. So clinical trial, registration, orders.
That's fantastic. It's quite an impressive little presentation. Guys, I really want to thank you for your time this morning. I mean, I've seen CSL in the press lately having troubles getting blood from America. They're trying to get blood from Mexico. I think your technology is really going to help Australia and help the world. It's certainly a big need for it. So good luck. We'll be watching you closely.
I think that's worthwhile talking about, Sean, because the very essence of the HaemaFrac is that it doubles the yield that you get from each litre of plasma. The fact that CSL is having trouble getting plasma shows you how critical it is to get as much as you physically can from every litre. And if we can get twice as much product from every litre relative to them, you can see why that is such a, our HaemaFrac is such a game changer.
I couldn't help but smiling when I read that article. I know it wasn't one to smile on, but obviously Aegros is at the forefront of my mind, and I thought you guys can fix this problem in a heartbeat. So, yeah, it's good to see you guys are progressing. And listen, I'd like to do this again in January. We'll touch base again with you so we can let the investors know what's going on and keep them in tune, because it's very exciting to see what you're doing.
Not a problem.
And it's our pleasure. And if any of the investors do want to come and visit us, please let us know, and we'll be very happy to take them through our facility.
And a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
All absolutely. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Merry Christmas to you too.
Bye-bye.